Good morning, YouTube. It's a cold 27 degrees here in Memphis. I know you may say 27 degrees doesn't sound that cold, but when you factor in the humidity and then a little bit of wind, it really makes it feel cold to me. I don't like it. I'd rather be, in the 60s or 70s, but who wouldn't? So this is what we got. This is what we're going to live with. What we have today, we have us a 02 Chevy Tahoe. You can see that. 02 Chevy Tahoe sitting there. Guy has a few complaints. Here's a list that he wrote me of complaints that he wants me to look at. While I've got it here, he left it here with me. I actually had it all day yesterday, but yesterday it was 9 degrees here, so needless to say I didn't get out in it, and that's just weird to go 9 degrees yesterday to high 20s, low 30s today, and it's just going to continue to get a little bit warmer for the next few days. But one of which he says sometimes the truck won't start. With the remote start, he's got a remote starter and one of these jokers here. He's got a remote starter, and look at that, it's kind of cool. I don't know if you can see it. Locks, shows the armed, unlocked, disarmed. It's kind of cool. It's got a remote starter in there as well. I haven't been able to duplicate that. He's thinking it's probably a starter. I'm thinking being this a GM is probably in the ignition switch, but then he says it won't work with the remote start either whenever it does that. So the ignition switch, if the alarm goes through the ignition switch, the electronics portion of it, it could still be the problem. I don't know. It might be just one of those could not duplicate. The first step in diagnostics is always duplication. If you can't duplicate the problem, you can't properly diagnose it, and so it'll be a could not duplicate concern and let it go. The other is ABS light is on. He's got no AC or heat, which I think is probably a blend door. With the ABS light, I'd think wheel speed sensors, a GM, they're real bad about that. He said he's replaced hub bearings and the like on them already. We'll have to take a look and see. 4x4 service light messages on that information center, which the Autel, you've already seen the Autel Maxidas 708. We'll have it out, and so we'll show you a little bit more of that. He's got an oil leak, which we're thinking is probably a rear main seal. Fog lamp switch, the fog lights are out. It's probably a switch if both of them are out. I'll take a look at the bulbs just to see. Being that I work in O'Reilly's, I might just get a bulb and stick in there and see what it does. And the service engine soon light is on. So it's check engine light. So we're going to take a look at that. The first thing we're going to start with is getting in it, trying to duplicate the starter problem. We'll start it a couple times. He says it doesn't do it very regular, just every once in a while, and it doesn't seem to matter whether it's hot or cold. Temperature outside's hot or cold, or whether he's been driving it and parks it and goes into a store, comes out, it'll work fine. Or he might get up first thing in the morning and it not work fine. Who knows? There's no rhyme or reason in talking to him as to when or why it's actually doing it. Like I said, the AC and heat, I think we've got either a blend door or a blend door motor that's bad. We're going to take a look at that. But we're going to start with the starter, and then I'm probably going to put it on the Rhino ramps, which I'll show you the Rhino ramps. I think they're great. The new ones are better than mine. Mine are really, really old. They're probably, 12 or 13 years old, and they're starting to wear out. And, plastic's actually starting to give on them. They've been used so much. But they still work. We'll put them on the Rhino ramps and get up underneath it. After I check the starter, make sure it's starting and stopping fine, which I'm sure it is. I'm hoping not, and then I can actually diagnose it. But as long as it's starting and stopping, and you're starting, it'll be fine. I'm not going to worry too much about it. So let's go check that out. So here we go. We're in our 02 Chevy Tahoe. Let me let our 02 Chevy Tahoe. Says the security system is armed. We're going to unlock it for that one. Let's see. 300, you see that? 337,652 miles. Wow. That is a testament to Chevrolet right there. So let's just stick the key in. Starts right up, no problem. Whenever I'm checking a starter in his, hold on just a second. Close the door. Whenever I have someone tell me, the complaint was he sticks the key in, turns it on, and it doesn't say anything. It doesn't try to turn over, doesn't click, 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 nothing. He's got a brand new battery in it. He has not replaced the starter ever since he's had it, and I don't know exactly how long he's had it, but I know he's had it for a long while, at least a few years. He's never put a starter in it. He's never put a battery, or he has put a battery. He's got a brand new battery in it. So it just, whenever I have a situation like that, I'll just crank it a few times. Just to see what it does. So now I'm probably going to let it sit here and run for a little bit, warm up. I bet. Oh, look at there. Uh-oh. No starty. No start. Remote start activated. It starts with the remote start. It'll start with the remote start. It just wouldn't start with the key. See, no key start, but take the start activated. Oh, it wouldn't start. And no start. Let's start deactivated. Nothing. Folks, I believe our problem is in the ignition switch. What we're going to do now is get Jenny out here to turn the key. I'm going to get underneath, which I'll take you along with, and we're actually going to check the power to the starter coil. Just to see if we're getting power whenever the ignition key is cycled. So, give me just a second, I'll get set up. Well, with this is a great chance to do a review of the power probe. So, you're going to get to see my power probe. I've got a Power Probe 3. There's actually a new one called the Hook out. I don't have it, but this Power Probe 3 is an awesome tool, well worth the money. Let me go get it out, get set up, get Jenny out here, and we'll go from there. Alright, here we go. This here is the Power Probe 3. You can see there, these are the leads off the Power Probe. Battery power, ground. You can hook them directly to the battery, but on these GMs where they got these little side posts, you don't have much to grab onto and they pop off of there. Neat thing about this, you got this little toggle switch. See, you got the plus. Now I got battery voltage. I can apply the ground. There we go. So also what I can do when I get underneath the truck with her turning the key over, I can check to see if I get power and ground. I can also apply power and ground. So we can try to start it that way too. So here we go. Getting underneath the truck without any wrench or anything on it. I think our problem is going to be the starter. Looking at this oil soaked mess. So the first thing, I don't know how well you can see this right up here. We should have, and we do, we have a constant 12 volts there. And then I've got to get up there. There's a small wire right above that. I got to try to get to that. So let's see if I can't. I'm just going to set you down. And I'm sorry if the video quality isn't what you want or expect. It's just hard to do this with one hand. I have to get out my little set of piercers. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Come down here with this wire. Okay, babe, try to start it. Shut it off. Do it again. Shut it off. Do it again. Shut it off. Do it again. Shut it off. Again. Shut it off. Again. Shut it off. Okay, Jenny's trying to do school right now, so what we're gonna leave it at, might give it just a second and try to start it again. But you see all that oil? Our oil is actually coming from the rear main seal. You could pull this plug out and you could actually see the oil coming out right there from right here. Pull that out and you can look up in there and actually see the oil. Rear main seal's leaking. We might pull the transmission out of it. But gauging that, pulling the transmission out, the starter has to come out anyway. This is the original starter, so as far as he knows, he's never put one in there. So we're probably going to go ahead and recommend the starter as well, because look at all that oil in the starter and up in the starter solenoid is probably causing a problem. That's why it doesn't matter whether it's hot or cold. It's got oil in there interrupting the signal, messing up the electronics inside the starter. That will happen. So we're going to go ahead and recommend a starter, with the understanding it could possibly have an ignition switch problem as well. But yeah, that's where we're going to go. Hold on just a sec. Try to start it one more time. Okay. Yeah, that's what we're going to go with, is call a starter on it, possibly ignition switch. GMs are real bad about it. But if the ignition switch is the problem in the future, they are on an active recall right now, GM, if I'm not mistaken. So that'll be fine. So rear main seal and starter, there's two of our problems on our list. And it's a nice little review of the power probe. Okay, we found that the rear main seal is leaking and dumping oil into the starter. We also found that we're going to replace the starter. If it comes out needing an ignition switch, that is covered under recall over at GM, so send it to a Chevy dealer. So this is how I wrote this up. I don't know how well you can see that. Just wrote it up. Looked up the labor time to replace the flywheel. Didn't have the rear main seal. It calls on Mitchell. I pull up Mitchell Pro Demand, pull up the estimator guide for four-wheel drive. Actually says 7.5 hours. But two things. One, my labor rate here is pretty cheap, and I'm doing it on the ground. So if he wants me to do it, I'm going to require 10 hours to actually do this on the ground. It also has an additional 0.3 of an hour for the flywheel to remove and replace the skid plate, which this one does have. So it'd actually be 7.8. So, but we will do it for 10 hours to do it here in the driveway on the ground. And I'm going to do it at $50 an hour, so $500 to replace the rear main seal on this truck. The other things we got to look at now is going to be the ABS light, the four-wheel drive service light, the fog lamp switch, check engine light, and the AC or heat not working. The next thing we're going to take a look at is the AC and heat not working. Get in there and see if that blend door is working like it's supposed to, so we'll take you along for that. So what we're going to do here is go ahead and start the truck, turn our blower motor on, which we also need a blower motor and blower motor resistor in this truck. That's going to be something else I have to write up. Let's see. I don't know if you can see in there very well. But you can see that pin right back in there. So what we're going to do is turn our load door, or temperature blend door. That's what that is. Let's see if that thing turns. I hear something happening. Tell you what I see is that blend door not actually moving full width. It's almost like the inside of the blend door motor is stripped out. So as the blend door actuator, the blend door motor moves, the door moves some, but doesn't move all the way with it. It's spinning inside the actuator. So the next thing I'm going to do is, somebody's already pulled this actuator out once before, but I'm going to, you got one bolt here and one bolt here. Looks like maybe a little 7mm or 5.5mm, I don't know. We'll get that down, and we'll pull this actuator out and see if I can't turn that door by hand and take a look at it and see what's actually wrong with it. So we'll be right back. Okay, to show you what we found, that's the actuator. It's not stripped out in there, and actually up here the blend door itself isn't too bad. What the problem was, or is kind of that the blend door is kind of sticking. If I can get in here, turn it by hand, you can probably hear that. But what I did to free that up, to make it so that it was working, was I actually just took a pair of pliers, and that's plastic in there, so you want to be up in here. This right here, that's a plastic piece, so you got to be real careful. And I just kind of gently worked it back and forth until it freed up, and those will end up sticking because maybe somebody spilled something down a vent, or just dirt and debris over time hang up in there. But we're getting warm air now, and I can turn it all the way to the other side. We get cold air. But what was happening is this was turning here. It wasn't turning the door full. The door was kind of sticking at a midway point. So if you imagine the door is supposed to swing like this, the door was swinging like this, when it should have been swinging full, that way open, that way closed, and it was stuck right in here. So you always had a mixture of hot and cold. That's why in the summertime he never got real cold AC, and the wintertime he never gets real good heat. But he's going to get good heat in AC now. Just got to put this blend door back up, and it's got 3 little screws. One goes there, one goes there, and one goes there. I'll hold it up. This one only had 2. The one that was on the front was actually missing, so that's what it's going to get put back in there too, is those 2. You can actually come in right here in this case, take a hole saw and cut a hole, make you a hook out of a piece of old brake line or out of a coat hanger or something like that. I've used a screwdriver. I've got a set of picks. You can get in there and actually move the door. If I grab hold of this with the pliers and gently turn on it on that little shaft, the actual mode, the blend door, and it won't turn with a pair of pliers on, in there pretty tight, then that's what I'll do. But I would rather not cut a hole in their box if I can keep from it. Short of that, what you end up having to do is actually go into the EVAC box, go through the glove box, pull part of the dash apart, and get in there to it. But fortunately for us, we're not going to have to. In this case, we got the blend door moving, and I'm going to put it back together, and we'll move on to the next problem. Okay, here we go. We've already done a review on the Autel Maxidas, so I'm not going to do a real heavy review on that, other than to say it's great. You can pick them up at Harbor Freight right now, as of January the 9th, 2015, for $1,099.99, which is a bargain when you figure all that you can do with this scan tool. So what we're going to do is plug it in. We've got a check engine light, ABS light, and the four-wheel drive light. So you find your 16-pin OBD2 data pin connector and just plug it in. I have the truck running. You can do this key on, engine off. You'll see you get the red power light showing that there is power through the data link connector. Power button up here. Hit that. And the tool powers on. It is touchscreen. The stylus got lost when I was working at the Volkswagen dealer. And the people that lost it didn't replace it. Kind of pissed me off, but what you gonna do? You can use an ink pen for the touchscreen. It's gonna power up. It'll say updating systems, updating programs. Please wait. I'm gonna wait for that to get done. Alright, we're working on a GM, so we're going to select that, GM. This here is an 02, so it's a 10th VIN. It's a, there we go. So all you got to do is count the 10th VIN. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is a 2. It's for a 2002. You can also look here. There is a production date 4 of 02. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it'll have a 2002 production date. It'll be a 2003. Let me just go page down until we get to 2002. This here is a light duty truck. Light duty truck. First thing we're going to do is powertrain, because we're going to look at the check engine light. See, I can verify that. Check engine light is definitely on. The ABS and four-wheel drive light would probably come on whenever you drive it or try to put it in four-wheel drive. Okay, we know this has a 5.3. There's a few different 5.3s it could be, so we're going to come over here and hit help. It's the 8th VIN digit. It's the engine code. So I'll come over here. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Z is our engine code. So right here in parentheses, you'll see the Z engine code 5.3 V8 L59. And this is, does it have with or without throttle actuated control? What we basically was asking for is it drive-by-wire or does it have a throttle cable? And this one here is drive-by-wire. It does not have a throttle cable. There's our throttle body. Nope, I'm sorry, without throttle control. This is a cable driven. Look right on there. See the throttle cable coming to the throttle body. This is the old school design. I personally like these because I can rev them up from under the hood real easy like. So without throttle actuated control. First thing I want is, what is my diagnostic trouble codes? And I'm glad we got the heat in this thing working. DTC information, DTC info, a P0140 HO2 sensor, that's the oxygen sensor, circuit insufficient activity, bank 1 sensor 2. We got a P0420, it's catalyst efficiency below. A loss of class 2 communication, I'm not really worried about that, could have been a dead battery or something. Generator terminal circuit failure. These will do that a lot if the engine dies for some reason or something. The two I'm going to focus on, I'm going to say a P0420, anytime you got a P0420 code, that's always a catalytic converter is no longer filtering, and that can cause our O2 sensor not to read right. So I'm not going to worry about the O2 sensor code right now. I'm going to say we need a catalytic converter. It's a P0420 code. P0420 means it needs a cat. See what I'm doing over here is just writing down catalytic converter, and we'll have to price that out. What's that going to cost? Okay, the other thing is, just because the ABS light is not on or the four-wheel drive light's not on right now doesn't mean that it didn't store a code. If it has been on, it should have stored a code. So what we want to do is go under chassis. Don't know what it's asking for, so you go help, the 5th VIN. So you come over here, 5th VIN, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is a K. So hit OK. Go back, K is number 7. Diagnostic trouble codes. I don't know exactly what it was asking for there, but it doesn't really matter. Sometimes you can just go right through it for the current code. That's a P0100 unknown code. So I'll write down P0100 and put a question mark. Let's back up. Let's go to history and see what's been in it. Electronic brake control motor relay circuit. That's C0265. And I'll tell you right now, these are known for electronic brake control module problems, EBCM. So that's probably what I'm going to recommend. We'll look it up on Mitchell real quick just to see, but it's probably going to be an EBCM. Needs to be replaced, the electronics portion. And on these, you don't have to replace the whole the hydraulic part, so you won't need to bleed it. But if you do need to bleed it, this tool will do the bleed procedure on the GMs or the ABS modules. So let's back out of this. And it didn't give me any four-wheel drive, so we're going to escape. If the electronic brake control module is bad, that can cause a four-wheel drive problem as well. So from here, what we're going to do is go home. I'm going to go ahead and power the tool off, because I don't like to leave it on. You can leave it on, as we may have to do some further testing, but it's not hard to turn it back on and unplug it. Take my tools back into the shop. With that actuator, what I decided to do, since I already had it out and they're common to fail, we decided just to go ahead and let's replace it anyway. I'm going to write it up just to replace it and go from there. Now what we got to do is come over here and get into my Mitchell. I'll show you that in just a second. This here is prodemand.com. We got it loaded up on a 2002 Chevy Tahoe. What we're going to do is come up over here, go to first search. Now see, we can see it says enter codes, components, or symptoms. So what I want to do is a P0100, because I don't know what that is. P0100. No results found. Oh, the P0100 thing, they either replaced, so you had 51 22 hits, fixed it. Replace the mass airflow sensor, clean the mass airflow sensor. P0101. P0102, replace mass airflow sensor. I'm going to tell you, replace mass airflow sensor. I don't like cleaning a mass airflow sensor. I have done it, but I don't anymore. I just go ahead, if you're there, I go ahead and get it. I know it costs money, but it is what it is, and it needs what it needs. So we're going to go mass airflow sensor. Mass airflow sensor. So it needs a mass airflow sensor. And the C0265, we're going to put that in. So we come up here. A C0265. Enter. Replaced anti-lock brake traction control module. That's what I was thinking it was. I've replaced a host of these for I forget. I just didn't remember what the actual code was, but EBCMs fail a lot in these. If I'm not mistaken, the EBCM in this, you don't have to program it. I think it's just plug and play on the GMs. What we'll do is, if he wants to do it, I'll put the EBCM in, and then if the Autel, which it won't, it'll flash it, but it won't program it. So if it has to go to the dealer for that, we'll take it to the dealer and get it programmed. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to sell a rear main seal. We're going to sell a blend door actuator, a catalytic converter, a mass airflow sensor, electronic brake control module. Then from there, I've got to diagnose the fog lamp switch, and then we're done with that. So hold on just a second. I'll go over, get the Power Probe back out, and look at the fog lamp switch. Okay, we're going to get out. Okay, we're going to get out the Power Probe here out of the old toolbox. We're going to go over and hook it back up to the truck in order to diagnose the fog lamps. So what he says is neither fog lamp is coming on. So I'll tell you, the first step in diagnosis is duplication. So we're going to come over here and turn the fog lamps on. Oh, I'll tell you right now, the switch is busted right there. So before I go any further, I'd recommend putting a switch in it before I did anything else, just because I can see the switch is broken. So let's see here. We got nothing. Yeah, so whenever I see something like this, the switch is broken, we'll say, hey, yeah, we need to go ahead and replace that switch first, and then go from there, and then perform further diagnostics from there. May need some bulbs or something, but yeah, we're going to put a switch in it.